very happy that you're here this afternoon. I couldn't have asked for a better fall afternoon, and especially a week ago, looking at the forecast when it was iffy. I can't claim, maybe I can claim a connection with the Holy Trinity, but I'm glad that we're able to be here in the sunshine.
That gentleman over there.
For many of you, this may be the first time here at the cemetery. Briefly founded relatively recently, less than 25 years old. Served a need for New Hampshire and, for that matter, all of northern New England, because there were no veteran cemetery, and as a result, in the years since, they have close to over, I think, 6,000 interments now, whether underground or above ground in the mausoleum structures. This all started, okay, like you, like many of you. I really didn't know this place was here. I was asked because, as you can see, I'm in military uniform. I've been a chaplain for the last 6 years in the Civil Air Patrol. I feel very bad. This is an oops. You're never supposed to say oops at a bris. I shouldn't always have to say oops here. But as I was walking out, I pointed out that one of my pieces of fruit salad fell off. So unfortunately, they're not so heavy or tightly put on, and I feel not exactly naked, but not good at being out of uniform. Don't tell my commanding officer. He might be out, not be that sympathetic. But anyways, I was called to do a funeral here of a Jewish veteran. However, they found out about me. And we walked, and came up here. I was very, very impressed with the place, and also and you are welcome to walk around, unless you have to leave right afterwards and visit. If you have a relative who might be interred here, there's a electronic or a physical book to try to show you the place, but just to walk around. And to me it rivals Arlington in its beauty. But we walked around, Iris came with me once, we walked around this area, this beautiful memorial garden. We saw all of the monuments of different groups, looking at Concord Lions Club, AMVETS, American Legion, Polish Americans, whatever, different military associations, Catholic war veterans. And Iris said that, notice that there's nothing here for Jewish veterans. So, not sure what to do. Thank you. And this gentleman who knows how the sound system works is Sean Buck. He's the administrator of the cemetery. I asked him if they had a list of Jewish veterans interred here. He said no. That kind of surprised me, but technically they don't need to keep track of it, and the monuments are provided by the Veterans Administration, not by the cemetery. And so we decided that we should make a list. This goes back to when I was on active duty as an Air Force chaplain in the Philippines in the 70s. And every year that I was there at Clark Air Base, I went down to Hati, a suburb of Manila, where they have the largest American military World War II cemetery, over 22,000 servicemen and women interred there as a result of all the battles on all the islands in the Pacific. And after the war, they were moved from temporary graves. They were either repatriated to the United States, or I imagine some families either thought that they had died there, they should lie in rest, become a rest with their comrades, or else maybe they couldn't find families to ask for some. So that had a major effect on me, and so I called the Gutman family, we'll be seeing them in a minute, members of Temporary Royal Manchester, on a spring Sunday morning, we came out and we did a survey of all the sections and all the mausoleums, and we found over 60 graves marked with Stars of David, which to me is a reasonable likelihood that the person there was Jewish. And then I said, let's see if we can get a monument erected. And the rest, as someone would say, is history. We got members of the community behind it. I got Federation to support it in terms of being not just a supporter, but a way of handling the funds. Manchester Memorials, that some of you may have used, or I know the community uses often for a cemetery in Manchester, was very cooperative. Mr. Buck was very cooperative and very encouraging. You may not think it, but there are still spaces for more memorials, and a couple times a year other groups do this process, and that's totally appropriate. So I am happy to say that it's obvious, but sometimes it's not so obvious that it shouldn't be said. This is one of the few projects that has a totally successful completion. The committee that helped me pick the kind of monument to use. We had a modest amount of fundraising. We raised it, and we have already left over. Here we are today, and anyone who walks in the future here will see this monument, will know that whether Army, I see Army caps, I see Air Force, I see United States Navy. I know one of my friends here was was later in the Coast Guard. So whether you served, whether you have a family member who served, this is a place to remember and to honor. So I'm very happy that members of the Rabbinic community helped me, and several of them are sharing in this service. I'm also very happy that we have, and I did not want to politicize this with inviting or trying to invite different politicians, but I did invite Mary Olszewski, who is the national commander of the Jewish War Veterans, and we'll be talking in a minute, bringing greetings and sharing that organization of which I'm a life member. So let's start, please, with a opening prayer. I'll call upon Rabbi Nafshi, and thank you to everyone in advance who's participating. And there's nothing planned for afterwards, but if anyone has any questions, you want to talk to me, I'll answer what I can. Mr. Buck, I'm sure we'll answer your questions, and so let's begin.
Before I begin my blessing this morning, or this afternoon, I just want to mention, as the rabbi in Concord, I am physically the closest to this cemetery, and so I have actually done quite a number of interments here, my own members as well as unaffiliated members of the community. I just want to briefly share one story which was so amazingly powerful of a gentleman who only learned that he was Jewish when he was in his 70s and dying of stage 4 cancer. And he learned that his father had been Jewish and he had sacrificed his own faith and faith community to raise his children in accordance with what his wife wanted. So this man obviously learned that he had Jewish roots, not that he was halachically Jewish, and he wanted to convert. And he was too ill to go to the mikveh. And so with his hospice nurse, we did a ritual hand washing. And we laid water on his hands, and he died shortly thereafter, and was a veteran, and so he was interned here. And I remember his daughter was about the only person who was at his funeral, and she was with tears because she knew how much becoming Jewish had meant to her father. And so there are stories like that for many who are buried here that are not just about the military service, but who they were beyond that. One of my own congregants had been remained in reserve as long as he could, and was a commander up here and buried his wife first here and then him a few years later. And again, the power with their children, knowing that for something that defined him so much, here he was. So it is such a deep honor for me to be here on behalf of so many Jews who this becomes their resting place. And they may not have had much community later in their lives, and that's how they get to me, is when they're unaffiliated. But being Jewish is a very, very strong part of their identities, along with their military service. These words I'm going to offer, I would also like us to think and dedicate them to those in this room. May we see the day when war and bloodshed cease, when a great peace will embrace the entire world. The nation shall not threaten nation, and humankind will not again know war. For all who live on earth shall realize we have come into being not to hate or destroy. We have come into being to praise, to labor, to love. Compassionate God, bless all the leaders of all nations with the power of compassion. Fulfill the promise conveyed in Scripture. I will bring peace to the land. You shall lie down, and no one shall terrify you. I will rid the land of vicious beasts, and it shall not be ravaged by war. Let love and justice flow like a mighty stream. Let peace fill the earth as the waters fill the sea, as we remember the Jewish soldiers buried in this veteran cemetery who died in defense of our great nation or of natural causes, but still served in the defense of our great nation. And together let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Robin. I mentioned the Gutman family as being instrumental in helping to locate the graves and give a record to the cemetery administration. Let me call upon all 6 of them. They gathered and from different places. And Steve is an airline pilot and flew in his private 777, right? We're going to read a prayer in honor of veterans.
Today we honor our veterans, worthy men and women who gave their best when they were called upon to serve and protect their country. Bless them abundantly for the hardships they faced, the sacrifices they made, and the many different contributions to America's victories over tyranny and oppression. We respect them, we thank them, we honor them, we are proud of them. We pray that you will watch over these special people and bless them with peace and happiness.
So, in different places that I have lived, I have been active in Jewish War Veterans Posts, especially the 10 years in Hartford, Connecticut, where I lived, before coming up to New Hampshire, be with family, enjoy the seacoast, theoretically be retired. I found out that there had been, after World War II, a very active Jewish War Veterans Post in Manchester, but the route of the time is inevitable, and there are no posts, as far as I know, in New Hampshire. There's a post for people who have no post, so to speak, but it's not the same thing. But the Jewish War Veterans remain active and strong, and I'm proud to be a member, and I'm very proud that the National Commander, recently elected at their annual convention, Barry Lashinsky, is here and share a few words and maybe shake his hand. It's been a while since I've seen him.
Good evening. I'm Barry Lashinsky, a retired Army colonel, although I was enlisted for 4.5 years, and I believe anybody who becomes an officer down the road and has that enlisted experience is a better officer, because you really have to work with the enlisted soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen, and now the cadets for the Air Force. Let me give you a little bit about Jewish war veterans. We date back to 1896. We're the oldest active military chartered organization in the United States. And with that said, dating back to 1896, our forefathers, and at that time they were all men, so I have to say forefathers, they were really focused on the future, because some of the things in their preamble talks about anti-Semitism. They talk about Jewish veterans, men, and I will add women, who have served. And one of the things in the preamble is that we must honor their names and respect the history and the service that they provided our great nation. And as I said, it dated back to 1896, so they had a vision of what was going to happen after the Civil War. And the same thing is happening now. And we must combat a trope that is out there that says Jews do not serve. If you look at World War II, 550,000 Jews just from the United States joined. Recently I was in Israel, and Israel has a fantastic World War II museum that they just built, and if you're going to Israel, make sure you see it. And they talk about Jews that served from all over the world in uniform. There's about 1.5 million. But right now, let's talk about Jews in the United States. 550,000 in World War II. They definitely had a cause to fight. Later on, as we go down to Korea, and we go to Vietnam, and we talk about the Gulf Wars, religion was not a big factor when we signed up, and not a big factor on the record. So I can't give you those total numbers, because when the Iraqi war came out, and I was involved with that, it's not to put my faith on my doorpost. And as I look around, I could see there are several wearing hats of my age, and you could ask them. And I was told not to put my faith, because if I was caught, nobody would know what happened. And the same thing is true with World War II. But the individuals put their names on it, and I put my name on it. So one of the things that I say that their foundation focus base was that Jews have served, and we must tell our story that Jews have served. The second thing on the preamble that talks about that we must honor their cemeteries, that we must take care of their grave sites, and we must pay attention to those members that are interned there, and we must go there once again to talk about their names and their memories and keep those alive. Since I was elected to Jewish war veterans, actually September 1st, I've been to 3 national cemeteries for Jewish members. I have never been to 3 national cemeteries for Jewish members. Prior to that, you can add it all up, and just within the past 60 days, not even 60 days, 30, 35 days, it was just amazing to see that. And I heard the rabbi say when he walked around the cemetery, he noticed that there was nothing for members of our faith. Same thing was true at Arlington National Cemetery. There was an individual at Arlington National Cemetery, not of our faith, but from the American Legion, took a tour up to Chaplain's Hill, and he noticed there were 4 monuments. 3 were for Protestants and 1 was for Catholic. There was nothing there for a rabbi. Nothing there to represent the rabbis that passed away in previous wars. So it was an individual by the name of Kramer from the Legion took it upon himself, and he contacted the Jewish war veterans to say, hey, what's the story here? There's not a monument for rabbis. And I would hate to say that at that point, Jewish war veterans figured it out. And thanks to this individual from the Legion, he partnered with Jewish war veterans, and because it was on Arlington National Cemetery, we have to have a congressional ruling to have something put on there as a monument. I thought it would be an easy task. In 2011, it wasn't as easy as I was led to believe, because we had to contact our national congressional districts and ask for them to co-chair and sponsor that there should be a monument for a rabbi on Chaplin's Hill at Arlington National Cemetery. That's when I started to get active with Jewish war veterans, because I couldn't believe that it was a difficult task. And it was almost like a chandra. You would think it would be something that could pass right on the spot. In Massachusetts, we had nine congressional leaders. And one job that I had was start to call and get congressional sign-ons. Trust me, it wasn't as easy as I thought. We got 7 with no problems. It was down to 2, and they said, let's hold off and see what happens. And I could never figure out what that meant, what happens. I offered their military liaison, let me come up and talk to them. And let me tell them why there should be a monument of a rabbi on Chaplin's Hill. I couldn't get an audience. And it wasn't until they finally had an election on the floor of congressional individuals to take a count that it turned out it was unanimous. But it was a struggle that we went through, and for some strange reason, we couldn't get everybody, but I'm sure when that count was taking place, those that were not raising their hand must have said to themselves, there should be a monument. So, I share that story with you. If I didn't experience and I was standing where you are right now, I wouldn't believe it, but it was a fact. 2011, we finally got a cemetery there. And if you're at Arlington National Cemetery, please take the time to see that. On it is displayed the rabbis that participated and passed during the wars, and their names are on there. I didn't come here to try to recruit a post, but I heard the rabbi say there's not a post in New Hampshire, and I know that. Right now, we have a department in Massachusetts, we have a department in Rhode Island, we have a department in Connecticut. Our numbers are dwindling, and what do we have a post in Maine. Our numbers are dwindling. We would love to have a post in New England to combine everything. And I look around here and I see the hats and I see the different branches. I'd love to open a post in New Hampshire. So I will give the rabbi my contact, and if anybody wants my business card, I'll be glad to give it to him. Because once again, if you go back to the vision that our forefathers had for Jewish war veterans, we need to keep that alive. And we need to say, because it's true, that Jews have served in every conflict in the United States. And in most of the wars, especially World War II, if you take the percentage of the population and you say for Judaism, the percentage of the individuals that were involved in the war, we have a higher population than our other religions. So we need to keep the word alive that Jews have served, and we have to honor them and keep their names and their memories alive. Thank you very much for having me here, and I would love to open a post in New Hampshire.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your coming up, and Iris knows that I can't help to volunteer for worthy causes. So if enough of you are interested, let me know. I'll coordinate with the jury. Okay. As I mentioned, it was essential as for this project. for people to donate money. I didn't want it through my personal checking account. I'm not connected with the synagogue. So I turned to Federation, and Allison Norton and her staff and her accountant were very accommodating and allowing this to take place and pay the bills that have come up in relation to this. So Allison, I thought it was important for you to say a few words.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing.
Good afternoon. As the director of the Jewish Federation of New Hampshire, it's an honor to be here today to share in this occasion with all of you. The Jewish Federation of New Hampshire has always recognized the importance of honoring our veterans and cherishing the memory of those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. The freedom we enjoy today are because of the brave men and women who have served in our armed forces. The sacrifices they have made can never be repaid. The dedication of this memorial is a testament to our commitment to remember and honor our New Hampshire Jewish veterans who served this country with courage and dedication. It serves as a symbol of our respect for their contributions and sacrifices. In the Jewish tradition, remembrance is an integral part of our identity. We often say, may their memory be a blessing. And so we dedicate this memorial with the hope that it will be a lasting blessing by all who visit and pay their respects. I hope it can inspire and be a place of reflection, of gratitude, and of unity. The support of the Jewish Federation of New Hampshire for the fundraising effort to make this memorial a reality was and still is of paramount importance. It is our commitment to remember and honor. By preserving the memory of those who have served and paying tribute to the contributions of Jewish veterans, we are ensuring that their stories, their sacrifices, and their dedication to our country will never fade away. I want to express my deepest gratitude to all who made this Jewish memorial a reality, and to all of you for joining today. Thank you to Rabbi Atkins for your dedication to this project, which was immense. And to so many in our New Hampshire Jewish community who all worked together to make this idea a reality. Let's remember that as a united community, we are always stronger and more resilient. I hope this memorial will stand as a lasting tribute to the courage, commitment, and sacrifices of our Jewish veterans and all who have served our great nation. And may their memory be a blessing.
As much as a lot of people got together on this side of the walk, so to speak, there was one person on the other side of the walk whose assistance was necessary. Sean Buck has been the administrator here for a number of years. When we first talked to him about this, he was supportive. He walked around and showed us what spaces were available, and has constantly been, in a sense, part of the planning for this. This morning he provided chairs when someone suggested it, wrote me and said, might be a nice idea to have some chairs for whoever might need it.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome! I mean, you probably use the Lions Club bench too, they don't appreciate it, but still. So I asked him if he wanted to say a few words, and he could possibly talk about I don't know, talk about whatever he wants, but I mean, share something about the Memorial Garden or the cemetery, and then accept the thank you for everything.
Report on the mic.
Hello, there we go. It knows it's me. So first of all, thank you all for coming. Thank you, Rabbi Gary, for all he's been tireless in this effort, and fantastic. I thought I'd add a couple of words about the cemetery. You mentioned 6,000. We're actually approaching 16,200 interments at the Veterans Cemetery. We're doing over 1,100 interments a year. But let me talk a little bit about the way it's laid out. Where you're at right now is the Memorial Walkway. This is sponsored by the New Hampshire Veterans Cemetery Association. which is a nonprofit that raises money for the cemetery. And we want to honor organizations and groups that want to honor veterans. And one of my key parts is we don't want to leave people out. We're inclusive. So whenever there's a religious event or a group or an organization, I always say honor all veterans, which I believe this does. This monument does two things. Remembers the service and sacrifice of Jewish veterans, but I also look at it as Jewish community honoring the service and sacrifice of all veterans. So it's a dual purpose, and I really appreciate that. So that's the memorial walkway. This is run by the association. Out there is the New Hampshire State Veterans Cemetery. There is no rank. There is no branch of the military. A civilian spouse is eligible. Could be buried next to an Army general or a Navy sailor or an Air Force major. We go in order. And so it's not surprising to me that I didn't know how many Jewish people were buried here. To me, they're just all veterans. And they're all spouses of veterans, and they all served our country. It never entered my mind to think about who these people are as a group. I look at them, each one, we try to treat each one with the same reverence and respect regardless of race, color, creed, where they're from. People say, can I be from another state and be buried here? Yes, you can. There's very few. You just have to have been a veteran and served and meet that criteria. National Guard and Reserves also eligible. Or you need to be a family member or a dependent of a veteran. And so it's I actually find that really special. So when you walk out along the grounds, you will see Stars of David, you will see crosses. They're called emblems of belief. There are 73 emblems of belief. Some are religious, some are secular. It doesn't matter to me what emblem of belief you put on your headstone, or if you don't put one at all. What matters to me is that you served, or that you loved someone, or are dependent of someone who served. That's what's important. We have a chapel right over there. The chapel, a gentleman one time called, they were having a service, and he said, my father wasn't religious. I'm not sure we should have the service in the chapel. And I said to him, the chapel's a building. There's no religious artifacts or of any kind. You bring in the faith. The faith comes from those who enter the building. It's not the building itself. And so I was like, don't worry about it. Have the service in the chapel and bring whatever faith or belief you want to bring in. So I think the Veterans Cemetery actually stands as a really important place to visit, where everybody's treated the same. If you serve, you're buried out there, and we just go in order. The next columbarium niche, the next in-ground cremation spot, the next urn, or the next full casket, it doesn't matter to us. And we don't take into account, there's not an Air Force section or a Navy section, nope, you go in the next spot, and we all go together. That's just how the military is and how it should be. So thank you all so much for this. I'm honored to be the Veterans Cemetery Director and unveil this monument and be a part of it. And thanks again to Rabbi Atkins, and thanks to all of you for coming. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. I know some of you from Temple Israel and the other temples. I don't know some of you. I'm not sure who is especially if you are connected to someone who was buried here, but just as when it is unveiling in a Jewish cemetery, the people who do the unveiling should be those who have an immediate connection. So if you do have some family member or a friend even buried here, you have that connection, please come up and now unveil the monument. And I certainly hope that there is at least one or two people, if not more, who fall into that category. Thank you, man. Please rise. I I'm very happy I had a committee to decide on the design, because that way, if anyone doesn't like it, but I think it is a beautiful design and appropriately worded. And Zichronam Livracha. Okay, I am a member, please be seated. I am a member of Temple Israel in Manchester. So they can still call me Rabbi Gary. I didn't lose that appellation even though I'm retired. But we have a new rabbi here, Rabbi Mark Philippe, who I totally enjoy his presence, his davening, his Divrei Torah, and you're going to have an introduction to his amazing Chazanut and voice as he chants and reads in English if he chooses Psalm 23.
I would only like to add a few words to what you said and what has been said concerning military cemeteries. I had the privilege to visit the American military cemetery in the Normandy beaches. And if you are not familiar with the D-Day beaches and the incredible heroism of soldiers at that time, I encourage you to look it up. And you cannot make 2 or 3 steps in that cemetery without seeing a monument with the Star of David. And so, while just because of the numbers, the majority are crosses, then there are so many. And I brought students there, American students, who were moved to tears to seeing that. Well, that cemetery, of course, because it was an incredible sacrifice and heroism, but seeing that there were so many Jewish soldiers who were buried in this cemetery. And Psalm 23. Adonai roi lo echsai bino deshe yavitzeni al me meduchot yenaleni nafshi yeshovev yanecheni v'maglei tzedek leman shemo gam ki elech begetz al mavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni ta'aroch lefanai shulchan ta'aroch lefanai shulchan ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged zorai di shanta v'shemen roshi di shanta v'shemen roshi di shanta v'shemen roshi kol sirevaya ach tov v'chesed yirdefuני kol yemei chayai ושבתי בבית השם ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
As we draw close to the conclusion of our ceremony, we have Rabbi Beth Davison leading us in a memorial prayer, and Rabbi Joshua Siegel leading us in Moyers Kaddish, for which both kindly rise and table. And I invite you, if you are so inclined, to remember all of those in Israel who were murdered by terrorists this past week as well. And then we will conclude by a second playing of taps. I had asked Sean if they had a real live bugler, or someone who would go press a button on a recording. He said, no, we have a real live bugler. Bugler. Sorry about that. So we thank Master Sergeant Lee Hertel for doing that. And then again, I don't think we need to read it, but if you don't know, the first verse of taps, which goes back to the Civil War, is on the
Every rabbi has to say his or her piece. Mine is short. Service has always been an important part of my family history. In 1916, my grandfather volunteered for the Gedud, for the British Army and the Jewish Zion Mule Corps, and he spent time in a number of countries, including Egypt, before making it to what was then Palestine. In the 1950s, my father camped in Korea, and in the 1980s, I walked into the 30th Street station and asked at the desk there in the 30th Street station in Philadelphia, and went to the recruitment desk and asked about the chaplaincy, and was laughed out of the office. Probably turned out to be just as well, because anybody who knows me knows I don't take orders well, and I'm not even really good with suggestions. But Cliff and I had an enormously powerful experience. In 2001, we were in Turkey, and we went to Gallipoli. And we walked the battlefield in Gallipoli, and we saw one Star of David. And we stopped and we said Kaddish, and for some reason I started crying to think about this one hero who undoubtedly died while the British officers were busy having their tea, and that he was alone. So fast forward to a funeral that I did here, I don't know, probably a decade ago, where I was the only living Jew at the funeral. And being alone is not what Jews are about. Jews are about being in community, and I'm enormously proud of the community that's assembled here today, so that we can together remember those who are buried here, those who are near and dear to us, those in Israel, so that they will never be alone, and that as a community we can always honor their memory. And I too want to thank Gary for making this happen. El Mole Rachamim Shochein Bamramin, Hamitzei Menucha Nachona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, In Kedoshim Otorim Kazar Har Harakia Mazhirim Lanishmot Yikarenu Shahalechu La'olamam, Ba'al HaRachamim Yistarein B'Seder Kanafav La'olamin, Beitzor HaChaim Et Nishmatam, Adonai Hu Nachalatam, V'yanuchu B'Shalom Am Mishkavam V'Nomar, Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to all of those who served to protect our country, to defend the land of Israel, and who have entered into eternity. O God of mercy, let them find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let their souls be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is their inheritance. May they rest in peace. And together let us say,
Amen. Okay, this is the one time you probably don't need the microphone because the Joshua will read us Good Morning Scottish.
I like Beth can't just get up and lead something. I got to talk to her.
Please, okay, there's the microphone.
I particularly enjoyed the presentation of Colonel Lashinsky. I hope I pronounced that right. But a couple more details. Everybody knows I was an engineer as well as a rabbi, so you've got to get some numbers from me. The first Jewish chaplain was in the Civil War in the 1860s. There are 14, if I remember correctly, names on the rabbi's monument in Arlington. And there are two rabbis, one Orthodox, one Reform, who are actually interred in Arlington. Going to World War II, right now Jews make up a little under 2% of the population of this country, but in World War II we were 3.2%, but we were 4.4% of the military. So Jews do participate in the military. We're not just doctors and lawyers and teachers, and et cetera, et cetera. You remember Yitgadal v'Yitgadash V'Almadi V'Rafiruzei V'Yamich Mafuzei V'Chayechon V'Yamechon V'Chayechon Beit Yisrael V'Agalah V'Zman Karim V'Imru Amen. Yehei Shnei Raham V'Barach V'Alam V'Lamei L'Mayel Yitbarach V'Yishabach V'Yitpar V'Yitramam V'Yitnasei V'Yizadar V'Yizaleh V'Yizalal Shmei Kedusha B'Richu Le'ela V'Yikol V'Yichatza V'Shirata V'Yishpachata V'Nechata V'Amiram V'Yamal V'Yimru Amen. V'Yei Shma Rabba Min Shemayel V'Yim V'Yikol Yisrael V'Yimru Amen. Oseh Shalom V'Yikama V'Yaseh Shalom
Amen. Is it protocol to face the bugler or to face the flag? Flag, okay. Face the flag. Well, as they would say in the military, dismissed. But seriously, thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here. As I told Rabbi Beth, I actually resonated to her words. No Jew should ever be alone, and you have made this possible in a most meaningful way. Thank you so much. Go in peace, and come back and visit.